Hello, Flo, how are you?
I'm doing great. What about you, James?
I'm very good. Everyone's having a good day. Welcome. Feel free to say hello in the chat if you are already here. We will just give it 1 minute to allow a couple of other people to join, just in case they're late. But nice to meet you all.
James, I've got a question for you before the people join. Do you think you will have a fire alarm today?
Unfortunately, yes. If I randomly go on mute at some point during this webinar today, then it's because we're in a building that has an inconveniently timed fire alarm. So apologies, but fingers crossed I'll hand the mic to you, Flo, at the right time, and we'll move past that.
Oh, good, mate. Wow, security is also meant to be in buildings, right?
Indeed, fits with the story of today's webinar. Okay, it's 4:31. So given we have a fair bit of content today, let's get the housekeeping underway. And if there are some latecomers, hopefully they won't miss any content. So we are on Livestorm. If you're not familiar with the platform before, please do react, answer, and engage. You have the tools at your facilities. We will send through a couple of polls throughout the session today. And of course, there's Q&A running throughout the whole session. So chuck your questions in. We'll be responding on the chat, and myself and Flo will strive to answer anything you guys are eager to know any more about. So a very quick test for the people that are here early. I will submit a first poll. Please do give us a response. Hopefully that's coming through. Just a quick test to see what sorts of environments people are working with today. Is your Kafka an open bar? What we mean by that is, do you have no security? You're all drinking from the river. It's free access for everybody.
Please, don't do that. Don't do that to yourself and to your data.
Having a preview at the results, and the good news is it looks like we have no open bars, which is a shame if you're looking for a drink, but no open bars. We have 10 votes all saying, nope, that's not the case, which is great. Great to hear.
James, what about you? Who cares? No.
Zero.
Okay, cool.
Which
So
is great.
you are in the right place.
Exactly. I guess that's why we're all here today. So, Flo, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Florent. I am an old geek, and I've been playing with Kafka for many years at many enterprises. One of them is quite well known, which is called Confluent, and then I joined Conduktor in order to do something kind of crazy, interesting, very useful for security. We'll see that during this presentation. What about you, James?
Yes, nice to meet you. If you've joined a webinar before, you probably see my face. I'm often here. So I'm James, I'm Director of Product here. So going to talk through a little bit of the security aspect today, but predominantly hand over to Flo and just be here to probe him and ask difficult questions and things that people want to know more about. So why are we here? So a bit of context to today. So this is the your data in motion journey, let's say. You've probably all seen some kind of streaming data maturity curve before. On the left side, you have early interest, people that are just getting started with Kafka. You've identified a project internally, and eventually you kind of move up that scale and you get something into production. You potentially have multiple lines of business, and by default, there's no encryption, there's no authentication in Kafka. Maybe you didn't bother to configure ACLs, and any client communicate to Kafka brokers. So things are simple, but they start to become more important once you're in production. Eventually, you might gravitate up that maturity curve and into the kind of mission critical, multiple connected lines of business, and eventually the central nervous system. What underpins that, of course, is a tooling strategy. If you don't do that, you might have a slightly more bumpy road as per the purple line, where things are less clear. Perhaps you get there, you get more mature, but then you're working backwards to plug things like governance, to plug things like monitoring, and to plug things like security. So that's what we're going to focus on today is security. That's obviously the theme of the webinar. And obviously we're going to be focusing predominantly on data security. little bit about Conduktor, not going to dwell on this, but just if you're not familiar with us, if there is anyone new, obviously we're here to help developers and engineering teams. We do this through tooling, but we also do it through being a partner to you as well. We've been trusted by 15,000 companies to date and used by over 100,000 developers. Tried and trusted across multiple industries, as you'll see here, hopefully some familiar logos. And our something that we like to hammer home is we're complete and we're agnostic. And what we mean by that is we're not tied to any vendor. We're integrated across the entire Kafka ecosystem, and we work with any provider. You could be in a hybrid situation. You could have on-premise and cloud. You may be using multiple vendors as part of a migration, and we're there to kind of support you regardless of which environment you're using. So we want to introduce two aspects of the Conduktor ecosystem today to help with presenting the kind of security theme. This is the Conduktor ecosystem, and there's two primary artifacts for you to be aware of. The one here that you're seeing highlighted is the console. It's probably what you're most familiar with in regards to Conduktor. And what we're talking about here is an interface, a lovely interface for you to be able to interact with Kafka if you are a developer from an operation or a troubleshooting or a data exploration perspective. So if you need a window in to see the internals of Kafka, nurture knowledge within your team, then that's what the console is here to do. So it's very much for your developers, your ops that need to peek inside to Kafka. And of course, one aspect of that is as user security. So how are you controlling which resources different teams, different domains, different lines of business have access to, and which operations they have access to underneath. This will not be the focus of today's webinar, but important to point it out. Reason being, this is our second artifact, and this is what Flow is going to focus on today. So this is Conduktor Gateway. It is a Kafka proxy, and it's essentially the data plane, and therefore there to enforce data security. So obviously what we're talking about here, as opposed to the users that need to interface with Kafka, is the programmatic aspect. So your applications that need to interface with Kafka, and obviously the data that comes with it. So less the human element and more the business critical element. And finally, we alluded to a whole bunch of reasons why ACLs are not enough. Hopefully this resonates with some people on the chat. Please feel free to share if any of these resonate with you or you've come across any of these in your past. I'm not going to do a deep dive today, unfortunately. However, one or two things that we can pick out here. Obviously, they're difficult to scale. Of course, they support Kafka itself, but what about all of the other pieces in the ecosystem, such as schema registry, such as Kafka Connect? So ultimately, we wanted to highlight this and talk through some of these because at some point, depending on your maturity, you're going to be doomed. And what this means is you've outgrown ACLs and you need to implement a bespoke RBAC system that you will then have to not only set up initially, but you'll also have to maintain. And obviously that comes with a significant cost for your business. So how can Conduktor help in the user security part? Well, that's the console. We're not going to dwell on it today. If you are interested in finding out a bit more about the product, you can hit up the product page, Conduktor.io console. But there is one thing which we'll briefly introduce people to do, something exciting, which we're really excited to show. These are all of the security features in console. We're not going to go through all of them, but all of this is there to help you integrate with your IDP, bring your existing source of truth, allocate permissions across multiple clusters, ensure that the people accessing the interface and seeing the data, it's protected in regards to the policies that you have configured, because of things like GDPR and PCI DSS, and you have auditability of what your users are doing with Kafka, who's creating topics, who's performing specific Kafka operations, browsing topics, etc. But the one we've got highlighted for a very quick demo is RBAC, our second implementation of this in the console. And we wanted to show this because it's our new very fine-grained system for automating permissions and permissions management. So I will briefly come out of my deck for the moment. And if you're familiar with the Conduktor interface here, you have the console. We have the concept of groups. A group could be a domain, it could be a team, it could just be something more abstract. And you'll see here that we have our admin group. Our admin group has super user access, let's say. So one thing we've introduced is service access inside the console. So the ability to control whether someone is able to actually just configure policies or is able to view the data policies you have internally. And then, of course, what I wanted to show today is the resource access. So this is really where it comes more critical in regards to Kafka. If we pick up a specific developer team, this developer team are working on a specific project, and therefore they only need least privilege access to a subset of resources. So as you can see here, what we're trying to do when you think about ACLs is bring more clarity and more of a human aspect to actually what the underlying permissions you can set, and bring that all into one really easy, cohesive view where you can see everything that underpins this specific team or the specific user and all of the operations and data access they have. So as you can see here, we can define permissions, fine-grained permissions at a cluster level, at a topic level, at consumer group level, subjects, and Kafka connectors. And if I just show you how easy it is to add a permission here, on a cluster level, I could say, actually, I've got a whole bunch of clusters and I want to find permissions across all of them. And then I could use a preset, maybe they just want read-only access, or I could define more granular permissions manually and say, actually, the only thing I want this team to do is be able to manage ACLs on all of my clusters. So really simple to do. Just wanted to give a very quick whistle-stop tour. This is dropping in Conduktor 1.17, which is going to be released at the end of the month. So a very sneak preview there as to what's to come. Something away. So getting a fire alarm here. So I'm going to very quickly pass on to Flo because I believe that we are onto the data security aspect. So very fitting in line with timing. So Flo, over to you.
Perfect match. So thank you for the demo. So as you understood, we've got an amazing role-based access control that you can leverage today on the UI side for the humans. But what about the other part? So let me share my screen, James. So it will be easier. And we will start with the beginning. The reality that I've seen in my many years of Kafka is that most people start with a Kafka that has no security. It's not much the case today because Confluent Cloud has security by default, even has security by default, and all your preferred Kafka vendor have security by default. But let's play the game for this exercise. So no security, it's not good. But when you start, you need to learn your craft. So with the gateway, you can change, if it makes sense, the security protocol on how to access your Kafka. So let's say you can't change your Kafka for whatever reason. Here it's for the exercise. You could connect to get SSL plain on top of a Kafka that has no security. SSL plain, yeah, not that great. By the way, what is the gateway? It's just a process outside your Kafka that you connect to your Kafka, right here. And well, here I'm asking for the user to connect to the gateway via SSL plain, but the real underlying Kafka has a different security scheme. So, okay, so what if you already have SSL plain? Well, we can, using the gateway, say, you know what? You can access this Kafka, but using SSL SSL. It's a bit better. How does it work? It's the same. I target this Kafka. I say, I want SSL SSL. I've got all the key store things that exist in the wild for Kafka and security and SSL SSL. There is no surprise. While I'm talking, let's not forget that the gateway is a Kafka protocol proxy. Therefore, there is no need to change anything in your application, whatever the language, whatever the library and operating system. So let's continue the game. So now you've got the right kind of security scheme that makes sense. Maybe you want to leverage the ACLs. I believe in my heart, and I've seen it in the wild, that ACL are not that great. I mean, it's good for the beginning, and then, as James said, you may outgrow it pretty fast, especially if you are successful with Kafka. And who doesn't want to succeed with Kafka? So ACL is just working on the gateway. Let's play the game again and move a step further. Maybe people are using Kafka, using the right security scheme, using the right ACL, and you've got some weird behaviors. How do you do it today with your existing Kafka? It's like, are you like enabling some kind of log4j stuff where you will be flooded by information you don't know how to make sense? Well, we just kill this problem by adding in the gateway, in the proxy, and audit system. Okay, let's continue the game. Well, we said that ACL are good, but well, maybe we wish we had RBAC, role-based access control. So the gateway can introduce RBAC at the Kafka layer. So in order to leverage that, you will need to connect to the console where James has set up all the security rules. James?
Yeah. And there was a question earlier actually from Lionel in the chat around RBAC on the console, given we just previewed it. If we're using it on the console and the gateway, do we have to keep ACL at the Kafka cluster level? And I think the point here is, right, it's complementary.
Yeah, so you can do both. There is one thing that is obvious to me as an IT veteran. There is no revolution. It can only be evolution. So you can, you let your Kafka with amazing ACL that you like, and application goes straight to them, so they follow the rules. And for the new application, they go through the gateway with a nicer RBAC interface that I like. Maybe you have different opinion, I don't know. And if it makes sense, slowly, gradually, over time, application will migrate to RBAC. In a way, RBAC is a mean for governance security. So you probably want your whole organization leveraging role-based access control. Does it make sense, James?
It does indeed, yep.
So you add ACL, now you can have role-based access control. So it's just, you are just one click away on the UI. And on the gateway, you apply the intention. I want role-based access control. And you just give this information, this request, this intent to the gateway, and the gateway will do the rest. Okay, but let's go further in the security journey. You want to be able to make sense of all this. So as a human, you go to the console in order to look at your own application and set them up in specific groups. James didn't say it, but it's obvious. Things that go without saying are better when they are said. There are APIs everywhere, so you can connect with your GitOps operation that you like and love. Kind of makes sense. So how does it work on the gateway? You just ask to put yourself in RBAC mode, and then there is some authorization token exchange in order to be secured. It would be silly not to have a secured RBAC implementation in order to ensure your security yourself. Okay, let's move forward. Let's move one step further. So if you are going through all these things, it means that your data is important to you. And you may want, at some point, to hide sensitive fields, sensitive information. So Florent can see everything, but James shouldn't see a few things. That's called data masking. So the gateway, yeah, James?
I was going to say, how would you differentiate data masking to encryption? Because obviously the two things are doing something roughly similar, but they serve different use cases. So just for clarity here, maybe you can give us a quick description.
You're putting me under the bus. It's a huge subject, and there is like analysis. It's like computation of aggregation and reversibility of tokens. It's plenty of things. But masking, at the end of the day, is just that. You ask the intent. It's like these fields are PII information, and I would say James shouldn't see them. Florent can see everything, and life is better in a way. But if you think about it, like masking this is a bit like an afterthought. In a way, you would like to do some kind of filtering for James, right? Well, that's what we can do with the gateway. It's called virtual SQL topic. So instead of masking and replacing with stars and things of this nature, we can just express the kind of filtering and projection for James in SQL. Here, I just say, well, for James, he can see all the patients, but none of the minor ones. It can't. And it's kind of simple, right? It makes more sense, maybe. And because the security teams always have amazing requirements, you can mix the data with the metadata. So I can do some kind of like case and switch and in and handle the keys and the offsets and do interesting, weird stuff. In my experience, some security requirements are always a bit odd. This will help me maybe solve some of these oddness.
I guess from a data sharing perspective as well, right? This could have benefits. Let's say I need to serve up a projection of my topic to another domain, another business unit with specific subset of information. I can use the SQL virtual topics for a similar use case.
Absolutely. And by the way, you will prevent like duplicating data. Therefore, you also optimize your costs. But that's an added benefit for this presentation. Make sense?
Nice, very cool.
So let's move forward. So you know what? No, there was no, I wanted just encryption. So it's like, don't try to fake anything. I just want encryption. Fine. Let's look at encryption today, how you can do it today with Conduktor gateway. Let's look at this intent. I want an encrypt plugin on the topic customers JSON. Looks like I want the password field to be encrypted with some kind of algorithm and a secret. So why algorithm? Well, depending on where you are in the world, you may need to change them in order to apply for specific regulation. Okay, that's kind of interesting, but that's JSON, okay. But the reality is that my data is important, right? And the secret is as important as the data. Can I handle KMS? My Vault, my Google KMS, my Azure, and all the things? The answer is yes. How does it work? Let's continue the journey and see how to express this intent with our good friend, the plugins. So here I want to encrypt the plugin. I say that my KMS is a vault with tokens and all the things. Look, the secret now will go in transit. For people that know Vault, it's exactly where it should be. And I'm asking to use this KMS, Vault. Oh, interesting. It means that you can, for the same payload, encrypt with specific KMS for this one, another field with another KMS. Absolutely, you can. Okay. So we are going through a lot of troubles, right? So it means that your data is absolutely important. It also means that important data most probably come with types. Where does the type live in the Kafka ecosystem? In the schema registry. So how does it work? Let me show you. Again, here it's encrypt plugin. I want to specify a schema registry. And if you're sending protocol buffer, Avro, JSON schema, you will be able to encrypt and decrypt data. Does it work with nested fields? Absolutely it does. Again, Conduktor gateway is a proxy. It's like a Kafka-based proxy. You have nothing to do on your application, nothing. You just change the bootstrap server and point into the Conduktor gateway, and you got encryption. So the story is done, right? What do you think, James?
It's looking complete. Can you either go to the here we go, right? So you have one more.
So you went through the troubles of doing encryption. So so you encrypt data, Florent and James have the same key, and if the key is gone, all data is gone, right? But no. I want to be able to let go of James' data. How can you do that? And by the way, crypto shredding is the only way to be able to remove data in a commit log that is read-only and append-only. So it's the only way to just destroy the keys. So here, I just want to have encrypt with schema, with vault, and look, the secret now is dynamic, and it's using the field in the payload. Therefore, there will be name-Florent created in my vault, name-James created in my vault. James, you want to get out? You want you to be forgotten? Perfect. What you can do is telling me I am going in my KMS, vault here, I destroy name-James, and your data is no more accessible ever. Only mine will be accessible. Does it make sense?
Does. Your gateway box is getting filled with interceptors at the moment, so I'm wondering what else you have left in the box.
Yeah, this one is interesting.
Indeed.
So you know what? Encryption is amazing. You can encrypt at field level, nested, whatever, with bells and whistles. But the reality is you probably have today very important topics that are not encrypted. Today, I'm discussing with you, James, with a topic that is not encrypted. Maybe Jean-Louis wants to access it, and he can't see a specific set of fields, but he needs them in order to do some computation, aggregation, statistics. What can we do? We can do encryption on fetch. So the data in Kafka is fine. It's just regular Kafka data that is not encrypted. And Jean-Louis, that will consume, the gateway will on the fly encrypt them, and Jean-Louis will be able to do its own thing. And yes, if Jean-Louis has a gateway where he is and access to the KMS, he can do many other things.
So you're maintaining the source of truth without needing to replicate the data, but producing a view or a topic or a projection of a topic for Jean-Louis that satisfies his need as a third party.
Absolutely. The gateway is like a buffet. You don't need to eat everything. Just look at what makes sense to you, pick a dish, and enjoy it. So let's continue the game, and let's move forward. The reality is that if you are security concerned, you probably have a ton of integration. Maybe you work in a large enterprise, like in financial services, in retail, and you probably have many business units or external partners or third parties. Maybe you want to segregate data in your cluster completely. And that's what we do with virtual clusters. It's like, what? We can do virtualization in Kafka? Well, Conduktor Gateway can do it. So, but how? Let me show you. You are one API call away to create a brand new virtual cluster. So today, it makes sense in the security mindset, but it's also an amazing opportunity to optimize cost. But today, we're going to be having that in mind just for segregation purposes. On specific kind of business, it's the law to make sure that you are segregating, you have a tool that segregates data for your customers. Just one curl and one fresh virtual cluster. Kind of amazing.
One curl for now, right? But maybe there could be a different way of steering it in the future, right?
Yeah, there is so much more, but so little time. It's kind of frustrating. So as you can see, the gateway can do plenty of things, and we talk to the gateway. We ask to do things. We push intent using a public API, and obviously this endpoint is also secure. It would be silly not to do it. So a buffet, you've seen a little part of the buffet. The real buffet is called the marketplace, marketplace.conductor.io, where there is plenty of things. Look around, see what sticks. Maybe one plugin, one interceptor, one feature, one intent is read-only topic. And here it's that simple. You've got a topic and you want to be extra sure that nobody will alter the topic. Let's say James is an intern. Please, James, never do that in production and alter the retention of the topic to 1 minute. Your precious data is gone. Let's say that James now becomes malicious because I hit him on the head and just deletes the topic. Not cool. I think we can say this is security related. Well, read-only topic would just solve this problem. It's like a policy. And there is many other policies that we call safeguarding on many things. I'll let you look yourself if it could be useful for you. So I think now it's time for the poll.
Indeed, I think it should be coming through now. But curious to know, following Florent's fairly detailed story there, where he showed you what the buffet, as he referred to it, can consist of by way of all of the interceptors, essentially the plugins inside the gateway. Curious to know, which of the below resonates with people that have joined today, by way of those problems. So yeah, we'll send that through. And I think while people are responding to that, Flo, I think we're going to move on to some practical demos, right?
We'll be happy to. Yeah. At some point, as Linus Torvalds said, talk is cheap. Show me the code.
Yeah. Some of the feedback coming through on the poll. So traceability, auditing. I can't trace who did what and when. So obviously we spoke about this we spoke about it both from a user perspective. If you're accessing the console, you want auditability of what your users are doing, and likewise for programmatic access as well, you need visibility of applications as well. So both of those two artifacts can be used there to give you full visibility of that.
And by the way, James, we have an amazing plugin, Intent, interceptor that is called Inject Header. Dynamically, we can inject like the username, the IP, the consumer group, and all the things on the fly. Therefore, you can have traceability. It's kind of an amazing one.
Nice. So top score is encryption. Maybe not a surprise. This is a challenge for everybody. But one thing I'm curious to hear your response to, Flo. So we've got one person, they're fine with ACL. They don't need RBAC. Any words of wisdom, any advice for the future?
No, absolutely not. If they're happy with what they have, don't change something that works. Don't change something that works. You're happy, just continue.
Perfect. Okay, so shall we move on?
Sure, my pleasure. So demo time. So I come prepared. So if I demo it, I can demo things in real time, or make sure that I don't mess up with the recording and my Docker, my gateways, my platform, my Postgres, my Vault. So I want to be sure I will not
No pressure.
Yeah, sure. And I will share this one. So can you see my screen? So this is the recording that I did just before. So here I want to demonstrate crypto shredding. So crypto shredding, so I create a topic in a virtual cluster, by the way, but that's not the point of the exercise. I'm adding secret keys for things, secret key for value on different fields. So I'm adding more bells and whistles than in the slides, right? So let's continue the game. So let's send unencrypted JSON information with default, very regular Kafka command lines. Once again, there is no magic. And we consume them back. Okay, perfect. So the gateway has encrypted the data with Vault. Life is good. So let's make sure now that we can decrypt them. If not, it would be silly. I didn't do any slide on the decrypt. Look, the plugin. So the intent is also decrypt. Why is it splitted? Because I can say gems can decrypt, or a full cluster can decrypt, or some kind of regex can decrypt. So you can be very precise to what you want to achieve. So let's make sure that we can do the right things. Perfect. So they are decrypted. Oh, interesting. Let's continue. So the keys are in Vault. And let's say that I want to get out. I can remove the keys from Vault. But before, I need, because it's a key is very important, I need to ask Vault to be able to delete the key and then delete the key. So let's do that. Okay, now the key is deleted. And I can't see Tom anymore. And so I can see Tom, but I can't see Florent anymore because the key is not there. Done. So it's as simple as that. So two curl giving intent. And let me share my screen. So this was crypto shredding. I had a backup plan with a video. What about role-based access control? So let's go there. So I create some kind of tokens. You know that at some point with RBAC, I need to talk with Conduktor platform. I need to also add my gateway, my cluster to the platform. I enable the role-based access control plugin. I try to create a topic. So it can. And if I apply RBAC in the console, it will just die. It will say no. So next one.
I think we lost Flo. I am imagining he has accidentally closed his tab. So bear with me. I will share the screen in his absence.
So that was a fun one. So you went for your alarm, and I had fat fingers.
Easily done.
Yeah, sure. So, sorry for that. That was fun. Okay, so every time, so everybody is interested with field level encryption. Everybody. I don't see anybody not saying, "Oh, that's interesting. I may want to try." They always ask, "But do I need to do anything with my current existing application, C, C#, Go, C++, Raw, Java, and whatever?" The answer is no. It's Kafka compliant. The next question is like, okay, what about performances? So here again, I can prepare. And if I don't do silly stuff with my machine, we should be able to do the right thing. So what we're going to be doing is we create a dedicated topic where I'm going to be trying to send data that will be encrypted. But before, we need to add encryption. Once again, it's the same. It's like password and visa. Let's create a file that is called customers.json with sample data in JSON. Why? It's because we're going to be using that with a tool that is by default in the Kafka ecosystem, which is called Kafka Producer Perf Test. So let's run this. It looks like to be something that makes sense, right? So here we asked to have like 1 million messages. So on my machine, it was like this afternoon on my machine. So as you can see, it's around 5 megabytes per second with 50,000 messages per second, basically on one single machine. To me, I think it's enough for everybody. But so, okay, maybe the encryption is fast, great, but what about decryption? Well, let's do the same. You know why? Because we got a tool that exists in the Kafka ecosystem, which is called Kafka Consumer Perf Test. Let's run this. You can see right here the number of megabytes per second that are fetched, and we are even faster. So what it means that the encryption is absolutely fast and fast for most use cases. It would be I would be very surprised if your use case is performance sensitive. So I want to showcase so many other interesting properties, but there is not enough time. Maybe now is the time to talk about what we are working on for the future, right? So it's simple. You wanted security for whatever reason, and policies, and audit, and role-based access control and things. Well, that means that we need to do a schema registry gateway. Same. So you don't change anything, and we can enhance your experience. This is around the corner. And if you agree with, I could go on and on with all the things you can go wrong with schema registry. People that are accustomed to schema registry know exactly what I'm referring to, probably. So if you agree with schema registry, well, Kafka Connect has its own issues. I may not allow James to be using this kind of tasks. Florent can't restart a task and things of this nature. Obviously, Conduktor is probably one of the best UI, one of the best Kafka UI in the world. So this is our route. So the next phase is just making the curl that you've seen, the JSON that you've seen, being consumable by any human, just putting like a nice UI on top of it. Gateway is not only for the geeks, it's also for people. Let's not forget, here we talk about security, so it's mostly about geeks, mostly about ops, SecOps, and all the things. But maybe developers can have a ton of interesting properties for them. It will be mostly for that. And a huge hit, I would love to know if it's something that you would love to see. This is OAuth2, real OAuth2 on schema registry, on Kafka Connect, and especially on Kafka. Why? So you can reuse all your existing workflows. So you can do token revocation with your existing workflows. So you can do key rotation with your existing workflows. It's probably something that you should be looking for. Which one do you like the best, James?
I'm biased. I've
personally biased and authentic.
Let's say, do you mean of what's to come or what's already there?
Oh, you know what? No, I was thinking about what's to come, but tell me what you like the most that is already on the track and the one that we are building.
I love the idea of the gateway UI in console. It's something that you know, maybe if you're making a few curl requests, it's not such a problem. But if you're a large organization, you're responsible for enforcing, security policies, safeguarding rules en masse, then personally, I think having that kind of watchtower-like visibility of all of those policies you have in place it's a sense check that you need. It aligns very closely with the reason that Conduktor existed in the first place, was to put a visual lens on top of the Kafka ecosystem. So that's my take on it. But like I said, I'm biased.
Having empathy for Kafka users, I agree, it's deeply important. What about
Absolutely.
what already exists that is on a track that you can test today?
Oh, interceptor-wise, so maybe slightly veering away from the security theme, the chaos engineering. So of course not a subject that we covered today, but maybe alluding more to developers, something that might be interesting. An interceptor that can introduce chaos engineering, simulate broken brokers and introducing latency to see how your applications respond. Super cool, super interesting for me. So if that sounds interesting, go and check it out.
This one is fun. So you just just to geek around, you just duplicate things in simulations, and you will see every non-idempotent application that you have, and you can be a bit worried. So let's continue the game. So now the call to action. You probably have something that you like. James was like two things, but you have a different experience, different requirements, different journey, different maturity. Well, it's up to you now to, test this, to make a test flight. And I will be deeply happy to talk to you, to understand your constraints, where you are, where you want to be, and see if some of the features of the gateway can be for you, and same for the UI.
And even if there's new use cases, right? If there's a use case we don't have an interceptor for yet, then Flo, I'm sure we'd be happy to talk through the problem and see what we can do.
Absolutely. So maybe it's time for another poll.
Indeed, I have sent it through already, actually, just towards the end there. So please do give us your feedback on which of the features you caught your attention today. It's really valuable for us. Certainly looks like encryption once again is leading the race. So spoiler there, but not surprised, right? Yeah.
Such a thing to do. It's like, why is it that obvious? It's because if you do your own encryption library, that's fine. You can do it. That's very fine. And then you need to maintain it, and then you need to change things with the version, with the language, with the operating system, and then you end up with your silly implementation. After you end up with a matrix compatibility that is terrifying, and your job is to just do what we did, which is maybe not your real intent in the first place. You wanted to help, and then you have a monster, a bit like RBAC, before you want to go to maybe ACL before you want to go to role-based access control. But once again, it depends on your maturity. Maybe it can wait.
Perfect. So we've gone slightly over, but I believe we have Jean-Louis, who has joined the stage.
The best of us.
I'm going to give a complementary answer to what you said regarding ACL and RBAC. For me, the way I would approach that, I'm a very pragmatic person. For me, the way I would approach that is, if I'm comfortable with ACL, there is no way for me to change. The reality is that if you think about scaling Kafka adoption across the organization, probably you need to have permissions for humans and for application, and probably it will be cumbersome to try to manage permission for two types of persona in two different ways. And this is where we can help. If you are very comfortable with ACL, just stick with ACL, right? And you will manage human permission differently. And maybe if you are quite mature, you already have some tooling to manage permission, you can continue leveraging that, and the gateway will support it. But basically, it's depending on what you're trying to achieve. Earlier in the chat, there was Raoul that was asking a very difficult but interesting question. If we think about security as a whole, at the end of the day, security is important, but at the end of the day, who is best placed into your organization to grant the permission to a topic? Is it the central team? If you have limited number of topics, most probably. But at some point, as you scale, you might want to give that delegation of permission to whoever the data owner is in the team to try to scale with the organization. But last but not least, Florent, I think every time I present those things, I get the same questions. And I'm sure some of the people in the audience have those questions. So we talk about latency impact or the performance impact. Great. What about resiliency? How does resiliency work with this gateway?
That's the beauty of it. So the gateway can scale linearly. So you add some new gateway, auto-scaling group, or whatever float your boat or your existing Kubernetes cluster. And if one goes down, it goes down. Hold on a second. What if your own existing Kafka cluster, one broker goes down? Well, there is a retry. It's the same in the gateway. In a way, we don't do anything. The magic of Kafka is baked in. So basically, we rely just on the fact that we are Kafka gateway. It's kind of amazing.
So the takeaway here is that resiliency is not only on the broker, it's also part of the protocol, and the client is having built-in intelligence to try to reconnect and rediscover the metadata and rediscover the nodes. So in the case of the gateway, it will be the same, right? Same principle. And we talk about resiliency, but what about scaling? If tomorrow I'm doing those heavy stuff like encryption and I have massive workload, or I'm scared that at some point I might be having a bottleneck, what are my options for?
Just add some more machine, scale up or scale out. That's it. That's simple. You want to have more, add more, and it will scale linearly. And just to let you know, for the scaling, so I'm writing a blog post on performances. It's not specific to encryption, and we can go easily at gigabytes per second on a 2-node proxy cluster. Obviously, it doesn't do much, but it can scale absolutely to tremendous usage. And by the way, almost nobody is at this throughput. Most people are like at most 2, 3, 4 megabytes per second. You know, when it's sustained for every second of every minute of every hour of every day of every week of every month, it adds up. It's a ton of data. And today, on single machine, you can go very fast, very far already. But it can scale to almost infinity.
One question from Lionel about the RBAC V2. Is it already available for customers? So the answer is no. You saw a preview in our staging environment earlier, but it is planned to be part of the 1.17 release, which will be at the end of this month. So we're talking less than a couple of weeks before it can be in your hands. I think we do not have any additional Q&A. I think we hopefully answered everything earlier. So unless anyone has any final questions or comments.
I think I have a hard one for you, Florent.
Go ahead. I'm ready.
How would this gateway or encryption fit in a zero trust environment? So
there's many ways to do that.
Should it be deployed close to my application?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I change?
Okay, Jean-Louis, you're a tricky one. So you want to tell me about so if you've got a central place where everything is encrypted, it will not be PCI DSS. That's correct. That's not the default one if you are very, very, very security aware, like financial services. And we met at one of these companies, Jean-Louis, we know that. So the only way forward is just to use the sidecar pattern. You put a local gateway next to your application. Therefore, you've got two things. So you've got a separation of concerns. You've got a governance of the KMS keys for this application. And over the wire, there is never any data going out of your application without being encrypted the way you want it to be. Does this answer your question, Lulu?
Effectively.
So I was answering fast, but the answer is for the security guys, you will need to probably move the gateway also near your application. By the way, you can still have a central gateway that will do other things, like policies, like audit, and all this kind of stuff.
So we can chain them, right? We can have sidecar pattern that can be forwarding to a central gateway if we want.
Absolutely, absolutely. And talking about that, I don't want to start geeking out, but we have merge cluster, federation cluster, when you can present one cluster, virtual cluster, that is the composition of many clusters. And it's very interesting security related, and it shines the requirement for role-based access control. ACL will not do anything right here, and it's deeply interesting. So, but that's kind of advanced, and we have like fallback stuff for very advanced security requirement. So I will be absolutely delighted to talk with you about security-related concerns that you have. With Jean-Louis and James, we've got a ton of experience about security concerns in the Kafka world. We will be very, very happy to talk to you and to understand more, and maybe help. That could be great, right?
That's it. Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much, Flo. Thanks for the great demos. Thank you all of the guys in the chat who stayed on, and thank you for the questions. Jean-Louis, thank you for jumping in at the end to help out with some additional context. So we will be back for another webinar to focus on some different aspects of the gateway, I think in early August. So please watch out for the invitation, and hope to see you again on the next one.
It's been a pleasure. See you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.